Welcome to the Locked On Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Adam Mattis. I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, senior NBA writer from the Action Network, Matt Moore. Matt, welcome aboard, buddy. How you doing?
Good, man. World's finest.
World's finest.
World's finest offseason. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be interesting because remember we had that conversation about when the next season was going to start, and you're like, I'm not sure it's going to be that late. Like, there's, and Adam Silver said January, and now
are you taking a victory lap?
I'm not taking a victory lap. I won't take a victory lap until the next season, until we have a date.
So I was listening to David Aldridge the other day, and he was same thing. That there were people. He said, I've heard some of these later dates being pushed, but he still thinks it's going to be late January. He said, I hear this stuff being talked about, but
I think a lot of it is just like, I think the most reasonable outcome is to maybe take like the middle ground of the two, right? Like instead of January, maybe not January and maybe not March, but sometime in February probably works in a pretty cohesive way. You want to hedge, hedge these things. And if you're going to hedge, a great place to do it, Adam, is sportsbetting.com. Today's episode is sponsored by sportsbetting.com. New players get a welcome bonus, a 100% risk-free week of sports betting, which you're probably going to need going up against, I think Cam Newton's going to be back, up to $500. Visit sportsbetting.com/LockedOnNuggets today.
Well, nicely done. So today's show, Matt has made a list of things the Nuggets need to add to their roster, like skill sets that they need to add, because going forward in the coming weeks, we're going to be talking about free agency. We're going to be talking about the draft and starting to get a little bit more into specifics, but to start off, let's just identify the skill sets that the Nuggets need, and then just talk about, if those things hard to add, are they likely to be added? Is it something every team's going after? And also, is it stuff that you maybe have that they can develop onto the roster just through, player development, guys already there, just kind of getting a little bit better at these things. So I think it's a good way to sort of preview it. We'll go over in segments 1 and 2, we'll go over that list. And in segment 3, we'll kind of talk big picture about what that list means. But Matt, let's start off. We're going in reverse order, by the way. So this first one is going to be the least important of the 5 things that Matt is bringing to the table here. So Matt, what is the number 5 most important thing the Denver Nuggets need to add to the roster?
Number 5 is rim protection. So I actually don't think that's that important. I think Jokic as a rim protector does fine when he is if he's a supplemental help defender, especially. Like, I like it when they're driving help to Jokic and Jokic is just like contesting. I think that works okay. It's Jokic in space is going to be always kind of the issue, and they've done a lot to mitigate that. What they could use, though, is they get a little bit more. I think Jeremy Grant learned as the season went on to provide more and more, got his timing down a little bit more, was really helpful. I thought he was really good at the end of the Utah series in particular with that. But like Paul Millsap can't protect the rim at all anymore.
Right.
And Mason Plumlee just winds up being a little too drifty. So I think it'd be really good for them to get a significant shot blocker in terms of adding that to their skills, whether that's MPJ or Jeremy Grant just adding on to what he's got, or just Mason Plumlee doing better. However they go about it, I think they need more rim protection just in terms of being able to maybe contest on the perimeter a little bit more, because the problem with the Nuggets has always been that once one thing starts to slip, once they give up a lot at the rim, they start to give up a lot at the threes, and once they start to give up a lot of threes, they give up a lot at the rim. It's never one thing. They're always letting go of the rope on both ends. So getting that rim protection to make that down so that you can then get out on the perimeter, I think is a good starting block.
So Paul Millsap has been a great defender his whole career, but 3 years in Denver, he's been a great defender, but not necessarily a rim protector. He's like the good rotation guy, keeps people away from the rim, but he's not blocking or scaring guys from going to the rim. Do you think that it represents a sort of drastic departure from what Denver has sort of established defensively? Meaning whatever piece they would theoretically add would completely change the way that they're going to defend if they were able to add an elite rim protector?
Well, I don't think an elite rim protector is kind of the thing. Is like, I think it would just be good to have a guy out there that can like provide us a different look. I think being able to kind of vary it up is a key here. I think that they probably would have to add somebody from the outside. And if the cost is Paul Millsap, if it's like, well, we can get a rim protector or keep Millsap, I think you keep Millsap.
Really?
But if you're able to keep Millsap and then we got a guy that can actually rim protect that we think that we can bring in on the periphery is like, I don't know, 9th guy, 10th guy, somewhere along the line there. Again, I think this is a lot of what it gets kind of down to with Plumlee. Like, you and I are both in agreement that Mason's probably going to be back. But for me, like, this is a big part of the equation is how much actual rim protection does Mason bring versus what's the idea of how much Mason brings to the table in terms of rim protection.
I think the other thing with both of those guys is that, especially with Mason, you know, as good as he is, he's not part of your core in a playoffs, meaning say he's a great rim protector next to Jokic. You're not going to play him next to Jokic a whole lot.
Right.
That's just you're not up to. And I think with Millsap, it has worked for the last 3 years, maybe diminishing a little bit each year. But going forward, I think you have to expect that he probably becomes at some point an anchor on the offense. So you probably need somebody that, if they are a rim protector, doesn't kill you on that end or just provides a new sort of wrinkle for you there, elite rebounder or something of that nature. I'm also surprised that this sounds so low. I think if you polled the casual NBA analyst, and when I say casual, what I just mean is somebody that's not focused on the Nuggets, just looking general, this would probably be the number one thing. Wouldn't you guess that people would say, oh, they need a rim protector?
Probably. I think they would probably go to rim protection because there is a perception of Jokic, which Jokic validated at certain times in the post.
Sure.
There's an idea that they are significantly worse defensively, I think, than they actually are.
Right.
I also think that in large part there is this idea that like you need a big menacing shot blocker. People aren't really used to the idea that you can just defend well without, like, Brook Lopez is not like a dominant swatting force. Like, he's not Dikembe Mutombo. He's not Andre Drummond. Like, he's not doing those types of things. He just does. He's just extremely solid and he's hard to score over. Like, Brook Lopez, I think, would fit really well on this team. Like, he would be a really good fit with this team. He'd be a really good fit with a lot of teams, but with the pace and style they play, I think Brook Lopez in particular would be pretty happy here. Now, he would be outside of the Nuggets price range, but just in general, players of that ilk where even if you're able to rim protect just by being a force that can play next to, I do agree with you need to be able to play next to Jokic.
Right.
And that's tough because we've seen that, like, center lineups, you got to be super athletic. Like, that's a lot of it, I think, is like in order to play next to Jokic, it's like we start kind of chopping things down now, right? Where it's like, well, you could use some rim protection. Okay, yeah, but he's also got to be able to be super athletic to play next to Jokic.
Sometimes there's obviously overlap there. Like, if you're a really athletic big, you probably are a good rim protector. So there is some overlap. But I think I do understand what you're saying about there's other things here maybe that you would put ahead of it. I had this third or fourth on my list, so I wasn't that far off, but I just do think it's interesting that most people would have had this number one. To kind of keep this moving, what was number 4 for you?
Speed. So I think
speed.
I think they could really use some actual downhill speed. I don't think that Jamal Murray is a downhill threat.
This. Yeah.
I don't think like Jeremy Grant can cover a lot of ground with his strides, but isn't just like pure blur. Monte Morris is quick, but not like lightning quick.
Really good one.
You know, Gary Harris is, again, quick, but not lightning quick. Will Barton, quick, not super quick. They could use guys that are just like fly down court, like a third guard. And this probably won't happen because of PJ Dozier's role in this team. But they do need guys, I think, that can really get from one end of the floor to the other for multiple reasons. I think one, it doesn't really matter where you get it. If it's a big and it's just a guy that's going to put pressure by running down court and getting the touchdown lobs from Jokic and really putting pressure on the defense by getting into the paint quick. If it's a wing that's sprinting out and finding space in transition to get up threes. If it's a point guard or a combo guard that's just able to get downhill really quickly to attack the rim. Their transition game has been a real weak point, and I think they need to add some stuff there. I think it'd be good to get some transition speed on the other end too, to get guys that are just always back.
Yeah,
always, especially with the way the Lakers play, right? Is like you want to be able to get back real quick because of how much they attack you in transition. So I just think that this team overall is very skilled. It's very smart. It's very talented. I don't necessarily think it's very fast. I think you could use some downhill, just pure speed on this roster.
So I didn't have this one on my list, but I just added it because I think it's a great one. And I would actually, but I maybe would tweak this a little bit. I think they could really use a Ty Lawson type, the speed there. They have a lot of guys, to your point, that I think are crafty. They run an offense that gets guys open, even though they don't necessarily have that, quick first step. But I think if they had a guy with a quick first step that would be a nice counterpunch that just creates things for them and then gets the ball moving and then allow guys like Jokic and Murray to finish the play. So I think speed is one of those things that it goes underrated about what the Nuggets don't have. Dribble penetration, somebody quick that can just, with a lot of shake, that breaks guys down. Not a lot of those guys, and typically that role would fall to a backup point guard or shooting guard. There's a lot of backup point guard, backup shooting guards who that's what they are good at, really, really quick.
Yeah, and I think that with the skills the Nuggets have, I think you could add another guard, and there will be room for him. And you can also run so many combinations. Like one of the nice things about Monte Morris is you could be like, "Hey, I need you to set the offense, and then I need you to go stand in the corner and wait to spot up." And Monte's like, "Cool, no problem."
Right.
And then you could be like, "Hey, I need you to run pick and roll with the point guard, and then if they bring help, I need you to kick to the shooter." Okay, right. No problem. Like right. Monte is just capable across the board. Like he's just a very capable backup point guard, which means that you could bring in somebody. This is like a model, and he's probably like 2, maybe 3 years past where you want him. But like Ish Smith is actually like not terrible in terms of talking about this discussion point. Like super quick, can put up points. I call them firebugs. Like these little firebug guards.
Okay.
Where they come off the bench and they just like bam, bam, bam.
Oh
like real
my,
quick points.
Firebugs.
Yeah, firebug guards. Zach Lowe said he appreciated that description, by the way.
Okay,
so,
all right.
You
right.
You can raise your level of appreciation up there. Thank you very much. Laughing at me.
I haven't, but okay.
So anyway, I think one of those guys could really work. My number 3, I actually might switch.
Should we tease it? Let's tease number 3 and take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to get to numbers 3, numbers 2, and numbers 1 in segment 2. But first, we're going to have to tell you about Built Bar, because Built Bar is delicious, Adam. It's so good, covered in 100% chocolate, soft and easy to chew. It's everything that you're going to be looking for when you're looking for these kind of things. When you're looking for a protein bar, that's what you want. You want to get your hands on a Built Bar. They've got 18 amazing flavors. They've got 6 new ones that are absolutely delicious. Cherry Barcia, that one I tried this week. Didn't think I was going to like it. Gotta tell you, I liked it. I thought it was really good. How'd you think you weren't going to like Cherry Barcia? Come on, man.
I don't necessarily like cherry and chocolate flavors very much. I like cherry and I like chocolates, but I don't
together.
I don't typically like cherries and chocolate, but I did like it in the Built Bar with Cherry Barcia.
Well, I'll tell you what, I only like protein bars that are keto friendly. Are these happen to be keto friendly?
They are in fact keto friendly.
Oh wow.
They are in fact. Cherry Barcia, 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, only 4 grams sugar, so big a deal. 4 gram net carbs. Wow. I'm trying to cut sugar out during the off season. That's my long-term goal, is to cut sugar out completely. Day one has not gone well, but I'm going to get there. And Built Bar is going to help me get there. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get $10 off your next order. Use promo code LOCKEDON for $10 off at BuiltBar.com. We're also brought to you today by SportsBetting.com. SportsBetting.com is now live and taking action in Colorado. SportsBetting.com is passionate about sports, and they are the authority on sports betting. With their own in-house bookmakers, SportsBetting.com is known for their sharp odds and low juice. You're going to get really good numbers here, and getting the best of the number is always really important. I went 7-0 last weekend NFL betting because I got the best number all over the place. That means the best prices for you when you get sharp odds and low juice. New players get a welcome bonus, a 100% risk-free week. A week of sports betting up to $500. That's huge. SportsBetting.com offers no hassle bonuses with just a one-time playthrough. Take advantage of their NFL touchdown and first touchdown bonus scores. Get your action on at the home of sports betting. That's SportsBetting.com/LockedOnNuggets.
All right, Matt. So now we're getting into the back half of this list now here. These are the ones that are the things almost Denver has to kind of add to their roster. What do you got at number 3?
Number 3 on this list, I think I should have switched it, but this is a very regular season thing. Like, this is a super regular season thing.
Hey, but that's important, man. That's it. Honestly, it's not the regular season is not meaningless. It's meaningful.
Especially because I think the number 1 seed is on the table next year.
Yeah,
I think the Lakers probably coast a little bit, and that opens up the door for the number 1 seed. Yeah. And that'd be great, because if you get the 1 seed, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, you get the 1 seed, you put the Lakers and the Warriors in the 2-3, and then the Clippers get into the 4 spot, and they got to go through you again.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a pretty good spot.
Let's do it.
It's easy points. They need guys that can just get easy points.
Okay.
I'm genuinely
not
talking
on my
about
list.
guys.
Okay.
I'm talking about guys that I genuinely do not like. I genuinely tended to steer away from in a regular season context, because I'm always trying to build. I'm always trying to build like a super efficient team model because like that's the way my basketball brain thinks. But there are just guys where it's good to have where it's like not like he's going to get you 12 and 6 every night or 12 and 4. He's going to get you like 8 and 3 rebounds in limited number of minutes. Like you're just going to get those. I don't feel like they get too many easy buckets. Like part of this is that Mason just continues to just be absolutely set on reverse dunking everything. But like even broader than that, I do think that they could use somebody that could just like go in there and get easy. Like Boban Marjanovic is not playable in a playoff series. That's been proven time and time again. Easy buckets.
You
like,
totally catch a team on the second night of a back-to-back, and they're like, man, we're not doing a walkthrough on Boban tonight. We're just whatever.
It's fine. It's fine. Those kind of guys. Like you could use like a 2 guard that could just come in. The Jazz actually, I think, got one of these guys in Jordan Clarkson. It was just like, okay, he's just going to give you these easy points, and he was a big help to them in that context.
Yeah. So I have a lot of follow-ups on this one, but I don't want to use them right now because I'm actually, for this one specifically, I want to save it for segment 3 when we talk about where that skill set or these skill sets are going to come from. So I don't have this one on my list, but I still think it's an interesting one. What's number 2 for you, Matt?
Perimeter size. What am I always talking about?
This one's important. This one's huge.
Perimeter size.
When you say perimeter, is there a spot on the court specifically?
I mean, I don't want to say too. Like, this is the problem. Is like I'm forced to basically throw Gary Harris under the bus.
Well, I would say more guards, wings, or swings, right? Like, so are you thinking more wing, which can be a 2, but it's like a 2-3 more than it's a 1-2.
I think you need I think you need the 2, and here's why: is like if we accept that like Jeremy Grant, Michael Porter Jr. is the lineup of the future, and like everything suggests that it is, right? Grant's big enough; he's big enough on the wing. Like if they're facing the Warriors and it's Wiggins and Klay Thompson, you could put Jeremy Grant on Klay Thompson, and just be like, "Hey, I just need you to guard Klay Thompson tonight," and that's fine. Like you can get away with that, right?
Right.
And Harris will do fine on Andrew Wiggins, and that's okay. Like whatever Andrew Wiggins does, you're just gonna gotta live with. But I think if you have a bigger 2 guard, it just helps a lot. The biggest key is that we've noticed this trend over recent years. The Lakers are an exception in that the Lakers didn't have a single guy on the court ever that you could target. You just couldn't target anybody. They were all good defenders. Like they had one at all times, even with the bench unit. Like the only weak point on the Lakers defensively was Kyle Kuzma. That was it.
Right.
Everybody.
And he's at least like really, really long and mobile.
Right. We've noticed more and more, though, that you can cover one guy. And Jamal was good enough defensively in the playoffs to be like, you don't really have to cover him. Like, you don't have to cover up that much for him. But if you take him and you're like, all right, we're going to make it near impossible for you to target Jamal Murray. And we're going to make it near impossible for you to we're going to put him on the easiest assignment because we have 4 other good defenders on the floor. And Gary Harris is a really good defender. But if you have more size, it's just naturally going to make up for some shortcomings. And so, like, to me, I think that they need – specifically, I think if they could add a bench option to be able to throw up as an alternate, like that would be a good idea, right? It's just like if they can bring something to the table where, okay, against this matchup, this guy's probably going to play more. It's a big 2-3 that has size, physicality, strength, and athleticism, and he's just going to be able to lock down and knock down. And like we'll get to the other thing that he has to do at number 1. But that size, I think, is really important. It adds to the rebounding aspect. It makes up for Jokic's lack of athleticism and mobility and verticality. There's just it puts another guy on the floor where you're like, we're going to have Jokic and 4 guys that are able to just like streak and like run around. It adds this entirely different component. I think that they need more size at the 2 guard.
So let me throw out a few names, and I'm not saying these guys. I'm just saying this mold of player. So there's Mo Harkless, I think it's more of a 4. Jay Crowder, who's maybe more of a 3, and then say like a George Hill. I know he's obviously a little bit old, but like him, like he's got a lot of length as a 2. Is there a mold out of those guys that you think is more likely what you're talking about?
I think more Harkless, honestly.
Okay.
I think honestly, if you get to a point where you have, I think you can do this with Jokic in particular. I think you can get 3 guys of that: Mo Harkless, Jeremy Grant, MPJ.
They're all positionless or tweeners, depending on if you like them or don't.
Yeah, and they can just play up and down or all over. Like if you're playing a team where the 2 guard's not a threat, then you're just like, hey, MPJ, that guy.
Right.
And then if you're playing a guy that if you're playing a team where it's like all three of them are threats, it's like, okay, we're going to switch everything, or
There's not
are
that
you able
many
to vary
of those teams, but
yeah. So I think Mo Harkless to me is like the identity, because like it's got to be somebody who's really low usage. Like you need somebody that's just like, he's there because he's big and he's tall and what he brings to the table and he fits, but he's not going to need a whole lot from you.
So now we get down to number one. And by the way, I think I would disagree with you there. To me, I think I look more at the 3 position. I think we're on the same page with this because we think that Jeremy Grant and Michael Porter can kind of go to the 2 or the 4 or whatever. I think they need a guy that can guard the LeBrons of the world. Obviously, nobody can do that, but just somebody with more size. That's why, for me, it almost seems more of a Jay Crowder type, a guy that has physical sort of ability to bang with some of the bigger wings out there. But so that's a minor difference. So your number one, I think I know what it is, but let's hear it.
Making wings. Shot
making.
What
does this mean?
It means that you got to feel like you have to make it to where the opposing team is like, we cannot leave him open. You cannot have dudes on the court that the team is like, let's dare this guy to beat us. Like, if you're able to add that component, I'm not talking Klay Thompson. I'm just talking about a 40% three-point shooter. That used to be Gary Harris, and that was one of the reasons I think the Nuggets offense was better a couple of seasons ago. It was when it was like, oh, you can't leave Gary Harris. That's not a good idea. That's not going to work. You need a 40% three-point shooter in the corner that's just going to be like, you can't leave. You can't. You can't bring that double on Jamal Murray. You can't bring that double down on Nikola Jokic on the roll. Like, you have to punish them for these things and have it be like, that guy will absolutely go off for 20 plus points on just pure spot up shots if you leave him open consistently. You don't need like a top level elite guy, but I do think that you just need shot making on the wings. You can't do it without those other things though, which is kind of interesting. Is like, you can't add JJ, like JJ Redick doesn't work on this team.
I know, it's what everybody wants. Yeah.
It doesn't work. Like JJ Redick doesn't work. Doug McDermott doesn't work. Justin Holiday might work. But.
But his shooting isn't like elite. But here's a question I have for you, Matt, because I actually break this down a little bit differently. Because Jeremy Grant, spot up shooter, Paul Millsap, spot up shooter, even Gary Harris, a little bit spot up shooter. What I think the evolution, the NBA is always evolving. What I think is the thing that people are realizing is that not all 3-point shots are created equal. We already knew this. Some guys have more gravity or whatever. But what I think actually creates the most gravity is shooting on the move, meaning the ability to come off of a pin down, catch the pass, and go straight up into your shot, which is different. Like, Jeremy Grant can't do that, for example. Like, I think he can knock down 39% of his threes, but you ask him to come off a double stagger pin down, catch it, and go up. He can't do it like Duncan Robinson. So actually, I think that's how I would differentiate this. Is I think Denver needs like versatile shooting. They need guys that can catch it off the handoff and go up off of it, catch it on the move and go straight into their shot, not just stand still, knock down guys.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think being able to throw in more complex stuff, especially I think this is part of it is everyone's kind of always asking for more complex stuff on the weak side. Like that's always a thing, right? Like nobody ever wants to see their guys standing around on the weak side, just like standing waiting. Like they want to see action on the weak side. If you're going to build that in, you have to have guys who are really good at it. And you have to have guys that understand movement and understand the dynamics and like the rhythms of plays and things like that. And so to be able to find that, I think like it's going to be a real challenge because those guys I think are harder to find. There may be some that shake loose this summer depending on what moves happen. Yeah. Like I just think that there will probably be some that kind of hit the market. And if you're opportunistic, you can definitely find them. But I also think that I don't think it would hurt them to have a spot up shooter that you are deathly afraid of, because Jeremy Grant's a spot up shooter that I still don't think teams are afraid of. Paul Millsap shot 40% from the field from three last year. We saw teams are not afraid of him.
Right.
A lot of it's also, I think it's volume. Like you have to have guys that just have like zero conscience about shooting that shot. They don't want to shoot any shot. No, if I get this shot in rhythm, I'm shooting it every time. I'm not going to overthink it. The guy closes out at me. I'm going to shoot it. Like I'm shooting the shot. That commitment and confidence to this is the shot that we need to take. This is why I like it's got to be a veteran. It has to be a guy that's a veteran player. This is why like the slice of what the Nuggets are really have to be looking for is very small. because it has to be all of it, like a lot of the combination of the things that we've talked about. Because this team is already so good, you're not looking for major additions that are broad, like anything will help here. It's like, well, that would help if the guy is X, but also Y, but he's got to be Z too. And that's why I think really kind of makes it such a difficult add in the offseason.
Yeah. All right. Well, our lists are pretty similar. I mean, you had a couple things on here I think were a little bit different from what I would have gone with. But in segment 3 now, I want to talk about where do these skill sets come from? Because the draft, I don't think you can expect that. Is there a trade on the horizon, you think? Or is this something Denver can count on from some of the guys they have? We'll talk about that in segment 3. But first,
talk about erectile dysfunction isn't easy. Usually we just brush it off or blame ourselves, saying things like, I lost my mojo. Or we avoid it altogether with excuses like, I had a long day at work, or sorry, honey, I'm just not feeling it tonight. But with Roman, it is easy to talk about it with a real healthcare professional who can prescribe real medication. It's simple, safe, and totally discreet. With Roman, you get a free online evaluation and ongoing care for ED, all from the comfort and privacy of your home. A healthcare professional will work with you to find the best treatment plan, and if medication is appropriate, Roman will ship it to you with free 2-day shipping. The whole process is straightforward, simple, and discreet. Getting started is simple. Just go to GetRoman.com/LockedOnNBA and complete an online visit. Erectile dysfunction used to be tough to tackle, but now there's Roman. Complete an online visit today to connect with a healthcare professional and take care of it. Go to GetRoman.com/LockedOnNBA today, and if approved, you'll get $15 off your first order of ED treatment. That's GetRoman.com/LockedOnNBA. GetRoman.com/LockedOnNBA. We'll be right back.
Alrighty, back here on the Locked On Nuggets podcast. I'm joined by Matt Moore, senior NBA writer at the Action Network. I'm Adam Mares. So we got our list here, and if I understood it correctly, rim protection, speed, easy buckets, size on the perimeter, and shot-making wings. That's our list here of things Denver needs to add to their roster, or skills they need to add to their roster. Let's start at the top, rim protection. Is there a guy on the roster that you think grows into this? I mean, I don't know who it would be. Jeremy Grant, perhaps, Bol, bringing back a Mason Plumlee, or do you think it's a different skill set than what Denver sort of has at their disposal at the moment?
Oh, I think Bol fits it.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think Bol at age 25 is just going to be very different, right? And that's a long time from now. But I do think that there's a good capacity for him to grow into that with strength, if he's able to stay healthy, knock on wood, strength training within an NBA system, he can learn to at least bang a little bit. And again, like what we're talking about here is being able I think it's a bench role, Like I think you're always going to be a little low on shot blocking, and MPJ and Grant are going to have to make up for that with Jokic on the floor. But I think with the bench unit, like you can get away with more stuff. So I think the Bol can absolutely grow into that. Like we've seen him block jumpers. That's a pretty good rim protection. If you're just not letting guys shoot jump shots, that's pretty good. So I think there's capacity there for him to at least be the help side rim protector. I do think it would behoove them to find a center to go on roster as a third option, just to see what it looks like. If they can find a pure big that is a shot blocker that can just set screens, finish lobs, and block shots. That would be very good for them to do.
Bol's going to be so interesting because, first of all, Denver does not have the benefit of getting a whole lot. I mean, I do think that Bol getting to go into the seeding round and actually play was great both for him and for the team to kind of know, okay, here's, maybe this is on the horizon, maybe it's here. But they're not going to know. I think they're going to have to make decisions now without knowing if Bol can be that guy by the playoffs next year. And what's so hard about that, we saw this with Michael Porter. The playoffs are a different beast. Teams are going to, if Bol is a part of this team, teams are going to be testing him in a playoffs, and Denver's going to have no idea if he's like up to that challenge until you actually get there. So to me, that is a tough choice. I suspect that rim protection is the one thing that if Denver thinks that they need it badly enough, I think that they go outside of their roster for. That's. I don't know that they would count on Bol. I don't think they'd count on Jeremy Grant. I don't think they'd count on Mason Plumlee or Paul Millsap to be guys in a playoff series to be that guy. So either they just feel like we can get better in other areas and just kind of live with what our weakness is, or they try to add somebody else to the roster. That's my opinion.
I don't know how you can take that approach given that you have to go through the Lakers. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I get I will preach constantly the danger of over pursuing a fit against an opponent because it just leaves you extremely vulnerable. You have to keep in mind that eventually you don't want to run up and be in the same spot. You don't want it to be like, we have nothing new to throw at them. We have nothing new to do. We just are just trying to do the same thing last year, only better. If that's your approach, I think you've already lost. I just, unless you're able to get, again, what you want is like somebody else to do the dirty work for you. But if you have legitimate chances, like if you see yourself as we can beat anybody, and especially if you're like, we could have beaten those guys. Okay, could have is not would have or will. Like, put your team in the best position to beat them. Feel like, okay, you know what? Anthony Davis is a tough cover, but we can throw different looks out there. We have the size to combat that lineup. We can get Dwight Howard in foul trouble. Like, we have guys that can do this. We can fight back on this level. I think that's important.
What about speed? You think we also talked about this as dribble penetration, but speed, is there anybody on the roster that projects to meaningfully improve Denver here?
I mean, I can't see PJ Dozier like adding a gear. Do you? Like, do you see that?
Well, I think he actually has the skill, and it's weird because it's not necessarily speed as much as it's first step. He has a good first step, but you're right that's only part of, I think, what we're talking about, the first step part of it. The end-to-end, I mean, I don't know. So I don't know. He's a little bit. I think he adds a little bit in that regard.
Speed, the only one I can kind of think of is if they were to find somebody in the draft, but I just don't know that there's any room on the roster for them. Like, that's a problem. Is like, when you start to really look at the roster, you're like, where is this guy going to find time?
Right.
Where does he get into the rotation in the regular season? Like, I don't know if they're going to take on any rookies this year. And so those are all things I think that are going to be, I think, difficult for them to manage.
I wonder if they do roll out lineups that have Michael Porter, Jeremy Grant, PJ Dozier, and pick the other. Maybe it's Jokic and Murray. Maybe it's something else. That's just like, okay, this is our fast lineup, and we know exactly what point of the game this lineup gets on the court, and they play a little bit faster, especially at home. Once you're back playing in Denver. But I don't think that there's a player on the roster that checks all of the boxes of speed that Denver needs. I think that would also be an outside add of some sort. All right, easy points. This one's really interesting. Easy buckets. Where is this coming from?
Michael Porter Jr. That's an easy one. Everything he does makes it look pretty easy.
He does get easy buckets. That's definitely one of his traits.
I think that's part of it. Is one of the things that MPJ will bring next year that is going to be really valuable is those possessions where the set doesn't go right, where the mechanics don't go right, where Jokic is like, you didn't cut, and you can tell he's frustrated, and like they're swarming him, and it's like, we got to figure something out. The 9-1-1 shots, having MPJ as the 9-1-1 shot guy is going to be hugely valuable. He's not a guy that like he can pick up a loose ball that's fell out of a scramble and throw it at the rim and it'll just go in. Like,
because he looks at the rim, no matter where he picks up the basketball, his first thought is like, am I open enough to shoot this?
Yes. Yes. And that's valuable. Like, that's a good thing to have. And so I think he fits this category. I think Bol might actually get a few of these just because, like,
he puts up numbers when he's on the court. Yeah. I mean, I know they're not the best sample size, but he always scores.
Yeah, I think that. But some of this too, whether it's on the perimeter or if it's down low, I think those would have to be guys that were brought in that add something a little bit different. Like if they were to add like a junkyard dog type of dude.
So what about a Will Barton? And obviously he hasn't been available for the playoffs, but I also wonder if he goes back to being more of a buckets guy. He's been a jack of all trades guy for Denver, but I wonder if now it's more of a bench buckets. That's sort of what he goes back to.
Boy, that's tough. Yeah, I mean,
I wonder if PJ takes over some of his playmaking role and defense, and Barton just gets to go back to being like, you're still a little bit of a playmaker, but you're primarily a attacker.
I think it depends on whether he's coming off the bench or not.
Mm-hmm. Right, for sure.
Do that. If you're in the starting unit, you kind of got to be in sync with the rest of the offense, and it's got to be very like, we are trying to accomplish X. The other thing is like the starting unit here, because we talked about the two offenses. That's
Oh, I think I might have lost you there, Matt. Your internet's getting a little pixelated. You still around? Caller, I might have lost you. You're off the air. Did I lose you, caller? Nothing like live podcasting here. while we try to wait for Matt Moore to get back, I'll kind of finish up at least my perspective on this. Number one, I think Michael Porter Jr. full stop is the answer here for the easy buckets portion of that question. I just think he is going to be an easy bucket getter really for his entire career. He's going to get those offensive rebounds. He's going to get those cuts. He's going to get I think he's going to be just a tough shot maker in the half court, but also I just think he makes the entire offense better. So he's going to make it easier for players like a Jamal and even a Nikola, just extending the court a little bit. So I think a lot of this comes naturally. But to me, Michael Porter Jr. full stop is that guy. If he's not, there's one skill I feel confident in Michael Porter Jr. having, it's the bucket making. So to me, that's why I think Denver has this problem sort of figured out. And I don't think this is the one I'm most confident they don't need to go outside their own current roster for. You're back with us, Matt.
I am back with you. So yeah, I definitely think that you're right that you don't have to go outside of the current roster to get there. I agree with you on that.
And then Bol, I love him as just this extra. I mean, that's part of the appeal of Bol for all the weaknesses is if you just happen to have another guy that stumbles into 13 points a night, that's big for you because there's not that many players that can do that. All right, size on the wing. I don't think this one's on the roster. I mean, they have a little bit of length on the wing and Jeremy Grant, Michael Porter, maybe PJ Dozier. But to me, this isn't the same as what we both had a little bit of a different interpretation of this. But I think in both of our instances, we probably agree that Denver's short one guy, at least maybe two, but probably one.
Nobody's going to grow 3 inches. Like nobody's going to grow 3 inches this in the next
20 pounds. I mean, some of this is just the 20 pounds. I mean, Torrey Craig, they could bring him back because he has length. He fits that box, but he's going to get steamrolled by your Kawhis and your LeBrons, which is who you have to go through. Maybe even your Doncic's.
Well, that's interesting. So do you think it's more about being able to contain those dudes?
I do. Yeah. I think Denver has those guys right now elsewhere for guards.
So I guess my thing is when we get to that level, I tend to think that there is a little bit of folly in chasing premium defenders for guys at that level.
Right. There's not that many of them.
Yeah. I just don't think, I think Jeremy Grant did a fine job on LeBron James. I think Jeremy Grant did a fine job on Kawhi Leonard. And so I don't know that you're going to gain much by being like, we need to go find a LeBron stopper. Like those don't exist. He's LeBron James. Like if you're going to win, it's because you're going to win all the other battles. You got to be the better team. You're not going to slow down LeBron. You're not going to stop LeBron. You're not going to stop Kawhi. You don't need it. Like you didn't need to stop Kawhi. You really didn't.
But you think like a Kelly Oubre would fit this, right? I mean, he's a long guy.
Yeah.
That's more of a guard. So he's more the type you're thinking.
Yeah, and also just being able to cut off everything else is such a big deal. Like if you're able to cut off all the other functions, like if you're able to take Kelly Oubre and just be like, hey, go lock down Lou Williams and don't let him breathe. Like, okay, cool. Like just that's out.
Derek Jones, I think, is a free agent. Is he a guy that fits in this one?
A little bit. Don't do the Heat thing of getting trapped into thinking that he's a big because they really got sold on the idea that he could like they put him on Anthony Davis routinely in the regular season.
He's so teeny, yeah.
And it was like, this is not working, Spo. Like, this is not a thing.
He's a skinnier Will Barton.
But yeah, if you put, I will say like the lobs from Jokic would be incredible, and those that'd be a really interesting combo. But yeah, I think I just tend to think that you're better off trying to I'm more worried about contesting 3-pointers, containing guys that can shoot the 3 off the dribble, those type of things. Like I really want to be able to contest on the perimeter and make sure that you're not just getting guys that you can't become a ball rack.
You just really want Lonzo Ball. It's so wild to me that you advocate for Lonzo on this team.
Long time Lonzo Ball supporter. Me.
I'd love to say, hey, man, you're speaking my language here. I'm in. Let's do it. All right, number 1, shot making wings. I think I agree on this as being the number 1. I don't know. It's certainly up there as a thing that's really needed. Is this coming to Denver's roster through internal improvement, or is this something else?
I mean, look, MPJ is going to bring shot making, right? He's going to bring shot making on the perimeter. Like that's going to be.
He's going to bring spacing too. I do think that even by the end of the year, the spacing, should be even more because he'll be such a bigger part of it. The defenses will be more zeroed in on him. I think.
I think part of it though is that you're going to have to find somebody. This is going to be the kind of the risk. You got to take a shot on somebody because of where the roster is at, and because you basically lost the ability to trade a big piece because it's too good now. If you're going to make a move for this type of guy, whether it's trade or clearing it in free agency, you still are probably going to have to take a shot on a guy where you're like, he's a good 3-point shooter. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but we think here he could be a great 3-point shooter. Like we've scouted him, and in college he was a really good 3-point shooter. His form is really good. He's had stretches where he's shot really well, but his overall numbers are uninspiring. And you're going to need to target like the teams where, like, think about what Indiana did with TJ Warren, where they took a guy that everybody was kind of like, eh. And then the Pacers were like, we just want you to do this, and it's perfect for you. And all you got to do is buy in on defense. And TJ Warren was like, I'm out of Phoenix. Don't care. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't send me back to Phoenix. So
they need that guy, yeah.
Yeah, that's the guy that they need.
Tim Conley's good at finding that guy.
Yeah.
I think that's one of his skill sets, is identifying guys. So I kind of think this is how this offseason shakes out, Matt. I think a lot of your big talking heads say, oh, Denver, they need to be aggressive, can't stand pat. And Denver's going to end up making a move for that type of player, the next Will Barton, somebody else's 11th or 12th guy, and the takes are going to fly. You don't win a championship by adding, enter guy on by adding Quinn Cook, or I don't even know who it is, but just adding some end of the bench guy. That'll be the take. I don't know. I could keep going back and forth on this. I've thought about it so much, Matt, over the last couple of weeks about Denver making big moves, or do they have just so many guys that could end up filling, kind of answering a lot of these questions. And the more time goes by, the more I tend to side with I think Denver already has most of what they need. It might not be perfect, but I just don't know if they need the big overhaul to check a lot of the boxes that we just talked about here. Rim protection, well, maybe you do that by committee with a lot of size. That speed and dribble penetration, maybe Dozier adds a little bit of this. Maybe there's a guy you add, a little bit down the road. Easy buckets, I think that's coming. Size on the wing, again, maybe collectively once you start to add some of these taller guys. And then the shot making and 3-point shooting. Who knows, with Barton in the mix, with Bol coming in, with Michael Porter becoming a bigger part, that's just we might not feel this way in a year's time, but I don't know. It's a really tough one.
But I think also you have to cop it a little bit too. I think especially if you're a Nuggets fan that's been here from the start, everybody always wants to see their guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Make it.
For sure.
And I'm always just I'm of the opinion, I'm like, you have to really look at the playoffs. You have to really look at the playoffs and go, where can we get better? I don't think
Denver has some that are very loud. I mean, there's reason to think Michael Porter's better than whatever it is they had.
Yes, there is. I think the low points for MPJ were low.
Yeah, of course.
They were low. And I think that you do need, I would want a baseline that's a little bit higher. I want to, in part because I want to give him the cushion for it to be he's struggling a little bit right now.
That's okay.
That's okay. And that may mean that they're closing games with somebody else, which will make this is part of the danger is if MPJ is not ready to go next year, there's going to be even more tension than there was last year. And
sure. Yeah.
This is such a big deal that they're going to have to navigate. The best scenario is that MPJ takes the entire offseason, learns the offense and defense inside out, gets himself in tremendous shape, comes into camp, destroys everybody, earns a starting job, and becomes a star. But if he slips up along the way, he has to live up to what he wants. If he wants to be a starter, you have to play starter quality basketball. You can't have it be you might go for 35 one night, the next night you might go for 7 points, miss 0 for 5 from 3, have 9 rebounds, but 5 turnovers. I'm not saying the floor has to be super high. It just can't be super low either. And that to me is a lot of this is MPJ fills a lot of the gaps that we're talking about here. He's not fast, right?
Right.
But he has the ability.
He's fast. I think he is fast. I think he's fast.
He has. I don't think he's downhill super speed. I think he can cover ground.
Yeah.
I think
open court fast.
I think he can rim protect a little bit. He's had some blocks here and there. Like I think
Right.
he plays more like a big than I expected, way more like a big than I expected. Easy points, he gets putbacks all the time, and he just finds himself into those kind of shots.
The Nuggets need him just to be the best version of himself.
Yes,
they really do.
Yes, and that answers a lot of the questions. If all of that happens, though, I think I will still be like they could use one more veteran wing. Yeah. But maybe it's Barton. Maybe Barton just comes back and is like top notch. Like top notch Barton from the start would be a really good get. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I would warn, I think the front office is doing what it usually does, which is it's sending out signals, we're not gonna do anything. It's gonna be quiet. And then it's not that they're not going to. It's just that that's what they're always going to say, because this organization has figured out that they operate best under the lowest of expectations.
Maybe. I think they genuinely look at this team and think they always get better. I mean, here's one thing I keep thinking about. You go back and listen to the podcast from 1 year ago, Matt. Everybody kept saying, well, Denver did good, but they can't stand pat. They need to shake things up. And they added Jeremy Grant, so maybe that's the type of move we were talking about here around the edges that makes a difference.
Yeah.
You go back 2 years ago. They didn't make the playoffs, this core. They need to make a shakeup. Tim Conley all along has just kind of stayed the course, and it keeps working. So here we are saying they need to – well, not this time. This time's different or this or that. And maybe, honestly, maybe. I'm not trying to argue against it. I'm just saying if you're Tim Conley, you go, man, they told me that 3 years ago. They told me that 2 years ago. They told me that 1 year ago. And every year we just keep getting better. At least that's a linear way of thinking, isn't it?
I think I agree. I agree, especially because I didn't think that they were going to improve on this season. Right. I thought they probably would regress, and they didn't. They went further. Like they figured they found themselves in terms of the mental toughness, and got the matchups and went further. Mm-hmm. This is part of the thing, though. Is like I wrote a big thing today over at Action about Jimmy Butler, basically being like everyone's falling over themselves praising Jimmy Butler, which he was awesome.
Really good. He was pretty good, Matt.
He was awesome in Game 5. Incredible in Game 5. 12 points in Game 6. 12
points the only one. Man, you are such a hater.
No, I'm not, though. This is the thing. The
Jimmy Butler had an incredible playoff. Hold on, man. He had an incredible playoff, so you just diminished it to a great game. He had a great playoff. There was a lot of great games.
No, but here's the thing. If you go back through and you actually go like, what happened after he had a big game?
Yeah, you're right. That he's not the type of player that's just great every single night. He has some really great games.
But this is the bar that we're putting him on. See, this is the thing. If everybody was like, yeah, he's a guy that can step up for you at any point and can have a big game and have a 40-point triple-double and carry you. Okay? But, like, here's the thing. How many people in the national NBA discourse would put Jimmy Butler over Nikola Jokic right now?
I don't know. I have no idea.
A fair amount.
Yeah, people put Jokic so low. So I don't know.
A fair amount. And, like, outside of Game 3, you know what you're getting from Nikola, like almost every single night. His bad games are still like 18, 8, and 6.
Totally, yeah.
Like it's just that's what it is. And so part of my thing though is everyone kills Harden, and I struggle with this question too. Of like I would probably rather have Butler because I've seen Harden not be enough so many times, and I've seen Butler be enough,
right?
Like a handful of times. But at the same time, I need you to do it. Like if you're the guy. You got to come back every game. And so what I'm trying to point out here is everyone just is kind of like penciling in the Heat again. And I'm like,
oh yeah, you can't pencil them in. No, yeah.
Don't pencil them in. Like they had a good run. The Nuggets had a good run to the Western Conference Finals. Don't pencil them in. Like they are not going back to the Western Conference Finals. Absolutely. Can they? Yes, they can absolutely go back to the Western Conference Finals.
They will if they add rim protection, speed, easy point, size on the wing, and shot making. All of that in the form of Michael Porter Jr. You heard it from Matt Moore. That's his take. All right. Thank you guys, everybody, for listening in. This was a fun one. I think we agree on a lot of this, maybe not exactly on how it'll be solved, but I do think those are the things Denver needs. So thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Before we hit the weekend, we're going to have a brand new episode for you, so stay tuned to that. And until then, we'll see everybody next time.